Hello everyone, it's been a while since our last episode, but we are back for episode 7 of Superannuated Starman, and we will be discussing Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo. I'm your host, Sean Ryan, and back with me is Chris Duerksen. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great. How about you, Cory?
What? It's not my turn yet.
Oh man, burned hard. Well, Chris apparently is doing great, so great that he's going to skip over me. Cory, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you today, Sean?
See, that's the triangle I was going for.
No, you screwed up.
I'm doing fantastic. I am really excited. We were talking a little bit off air, and it's been a long time since our last podcast, but I am so amped up just talking about this. I'm really excited, really ready to dig into this. So I'm going to start with the history of the game, and then we will move on to our next segment where we talk about what it was like playing as kids. So as I said earlier, today's topic is Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo. It was released on Halloween of 1991 in Japan and December 4th of the same year in North America. Europe wouldn't see this game until a year later on November 23rd in 1992. It was the first of 2 Castlevania games that would eventually release for the Super NES. It was named by Nintendo Power in a 2006 issue as the 66th best game made on a Nintendo system, selling a little over 500,000 copies worldwide. That's a mouthful. Sorry that took so long. Kind of sound weird getting out. Despite being a numbered sequel, the game is a retelling of the first Castlevania for the NES. The plot and premise for Super Castlevania 4 remain the same as the game is based on, but there's some slight differences that we'll discuss later. Players control the legendary vampire hunter, Simon Belmont, wielder of the vampire killer whip, as he sets out through a dark, unholy castle in the year 1691 to destroy the evil Count Dracula. Now, this game has been released several times. It appeared on the Virtual Console for the Wii U, and the Nintendo 3DS. It was included as one of 21 titles on the Super NES Classic Edition. Most recently, it was included on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection for current-gen systems. Unfortunately, it's not available on the Nintendo Switch Online subscription service. In fact, the only Castlevania game is Castlevania Bloodlines for the Sega Genesis. That's the only one available, and it's only available through the NSO expansion pack. Probably because they were selling the Anniversary Collection and didn't want their profits to be scalped by getting it, quote-unquote, for free if you subscribe for the NSO. So, that was a lot, but it was real quick because I want to get into this game. That wraps up the history. Let's take a break and listen to some music from Super Castlevania, and we'll...
Wait, quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. Do the Japanese celebrate Halloween?
I was thinking the same thing.
I don't know. It was released on October 31st in 1991 in Japan, but
Right.
I don't know.
Wouldn't that make it so much cooler if it was like a Halloween thing?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm wondering if they celebrate Halloween, because if they don't, they really screwed up because the North American market didn't get it until, you said, December 4th?
Correct.
Yeah, so, listen, Japan, you better have had a good Halloween. All right, anyway, it's time for a break. Let's hear some music.
I Googled it, and the first answer was yes, that they do.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
Good
Yay,
to hear.
lucky them.
All right, so when we get back, we're going to discuss what it was like playing this game as children, or at least in our childhood in the early 90s. Stick around. Chris, we talked about this a little off air, and you seem really stoked on this game. So I'd like you to start us off and tell us what it was like for you to play this game when you were younger.
Oh, cool story here. So, turns out I didn't tell you guys this earlier. Never played this as a kid. I played Castlevania X, which is another one on the Super Nintendo. So I thought we were going to be talking about that one, and I was all excited because I was like, "Oh, I actually played that one." So when I actually loaded up 4, never played this one before, so this one was a brand new experience. But it's great because this one is so much better than X.
Yeah, so Castlevania X is actually a pseudo port of Rondo of Blood that was originally on the TurboGrafx 16,
Is that
and
why it's like nothing?
the game sucks, honestly.
Yeah,
but
and it doesn't feel like a Castlevania game. So
yeah,
getting to play this one, like that's why I've been so stoked about it. And I didn't want to drop that. I wanted to keep that juicy nugget for when we recorded.
I have a legitimate question here. Have any of us played this as a child?
Me, I did.
So Sean, how about you start us off? How was it playing as a child?
Yeah, okay. Well, we will kind of change the order then, and I'll go ahead and talk about Castlevania. But before I start about Castlevania 4, I need to talk about Castlevania as a series and what it meant to me. The first time I ever saw anything Castlevania related, I saw the September-October 1988 Volume 2 of Nintendo Power that had Simon from, Simon's Quest, Castlevania, all those. He was prominently featured on the magazine cover holding Dracula's decapitated head. I was like
brutal.
4 years old when I saw this. I couldn't tell you what store or what we were doing. All I remember is just vividly seeing this magazine, and it said Nintendo Power at the very top of it. So I knew it was, Nintendo related, but I was just terrified. But I still asked my mother if I could get it. She said no, of course. But later on, I was able to convince my uncle to buy it for me, and I hid that magazine from my parents because I was afraid that they would take it away from me because she saw how scared I got when I first saw it.
Okay, I'm right there with you. Not that exact magazine, but I just remember the imagery and everything about Castlevania as being like a little kid because the first game came out in late 80s. So Castlevania has been around as long as video games have been around for us. And it's always like the imagery and the I don't know, the theme of it has always been more badass than anything else I remember at that time. Because it was kind of spooky and brutal and just awesome.
Absolutely. And when I eventually got my own NES, I wanted to play Castlevania despite how hard the game was and how much it scared me. I was still really into it. I really loved the game. And we've talked about this before. I say it almost every time. I didn't have a Super Nintendo at launch. So it wasn't until I got a Super Nintendo the Christmas of 94, several months after that, that I finally got to play Super Castlevania 4. I was at a local pizzeria / video rental store, and I saw it. I loved the original Castlevanias on the NES, so I asked my parents to pick that up and a movie. I can't remember what it was, but I remember having the pizza box on my lap, and then the VHS, and then the Super Nintendo game sitting on top of that. And I can't remember things that are important to me in my life, but I can remember this crap about video games.
It's okay. I still have to do the math when I try to remember how old I am. So
yeah, that hits me sometimes too, man. So I played the hell out of this game whenever I could, as far as renting it went. And the rental store was maybe 20 miles or so away. It wasn't local to me. I didn't get a chance to rent it all the time. But whenever I did, I just played as much as I could. I don't remember if I beat it. I think I did, but that part's kind of fuzzy for me. By the time that I finally got this game for myself, the N64 had already launched. I didn't get that at launch either. But my parents did buy me a Virtual Boy, of all things, which is depressing. But I really liked this game a lot, and when I was a teenager, it was a really not. I don't know how to say it. It wasn't like an important game to me, but it was something that I played a lot of, and really kind of something that I could always go back to on the Super Nintendo and really enjoy it. And when my parents did buy it for me, it was, oh man, how old would I have been? It would have been 6th grade. So we're talking 1996. And my parents only got the cart for me. So they must have gotten it secondhand, at a pawn shop or somewhere. Oh, is there audio issues?
Getting a little bit of
just
lag.
It was a little bit. It's gone.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, folks, if that's a problem. Where'd you guys have problems?
The last 15 seconds ish, there was a couple of spots where you were freezing up a little bit.
Do you remember what I was talking about?
I'm ashamed to say I don't know specifically what you're talking about. Talking about getting the single cartridge and
You like something like an easy fallback to play as a child.
Yeah. About as your teenager years, you didn't play it a lot. You got the
Yeah.
Okay.
See, you guys are paying attention. So
We are, but
I hear you. I'm just messing around. So what I was saying was that this game, it was a game that I could always kind of fall back on and enjoy. And I don't know if you guys heard this part or not, but when my family did get this game for me because I asked for it, it was 5 years after it released in 1996, and they only got the cart. So
yes,
so you heard all that. Okay.
Yeah. You didn't actually cut out anything. It just had a tinny.
You turned
hallway.
into Mr. Roboto.
Yeah, turned into Roboto. You want Roboto mode.
Okay.
I thought you were just impressing us with your power of being a Styx cover band, but
So, like I was saying earlier, despite how much I loved this game, I don't really remember a ton of playing the game itself because I was also playing the N64 at this time because that came out in oh yeah.
And that was quick time too, buddy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Chris and I used to play Quake on our now archaic computers constantly. That was something
and not just ours. John Thompson loaded that thing into the computer lab at school. We were able to play network games during lunch and recess and stuff. It was great.
That and Oregon Trail and Number Munchers.
No, that shit was for junior high. Oops, I said the S word.
It's no worries. So I know you're talking bad about Apple IIe's, but our school had Apple IIe's, and we did have Odell Lake, Number Munchers, Oregon Trail.
Did you have the Mario Paint game or whatever it was?
No, that's way too nice.
We had Paper Airplane Flight.
What kind of your home computer? I'm actually curious now. What kind of machine did you have at home?
A cheap Dell that my mom bought.
Okay, so it was like a pre-built type of thing.
I remember, yeah, it was pre-built.
It was a 133, I want to say. It was a Packard Bell, and it was your typical off-the-shelf, here's your first computer ever.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. See, my father's a big nerd, and he actually went to technical school or whatever it was. So we had it was an old server from his job. They were throwing it out. So we had this 3 foot tall steel tower with 6 floppy drives and 3 CD drives on it, and it was just cobbled together with all sorts of parts and BS. It was something to see.
Wow, your first computer had a CD drive on it?
Well, I mean, it was a business computer.
You young.
I mean, we had a Commodore at one point, but I really don't have too many memories of that.
We had a Commodore 64 as well, but I don't really consider that my first computer. I'm talking about the first IBM that we had. Anyhow, that was that was a lot. So, Chris, we will eventually have to talk about Quake on this show, but for now, let's finish this up. I have one last story to tell about the game because I don't really have memories of playing it. But I have memories about the game I got the game in 1996. It was a couple years later that I had. No, let me back up. I had kind of moved on to the N64 and the PlayStation and all that, playing at other people's houses and playing at my uncle's house. And so I wasn't really using my Super Nintendo much anymore. And my mother asked if I would be okay giving it and all my games away to a family that was a little less fortunate than we were. So I said, no problem. Went ahead and gave it away. About 2 to 3 years later, so this is now 1998-ish, and I am back into video games. You know, I want to play them all. I want to play all the old stuff that I had when I was younger, but I had given a lot of that away or sold it, and I brought that up to my mother, and I don't know if she asked for the Super Nintendo back, which I hope she did not, but she showed up one day with a Super Nintendo and a small stack of games. I'm sad to say Super Castlevania was not among them, but Final Fantasy III was, and I had never owned or played that game up to that point. So I'll take that. That's a major win. I've rebought the game since then, but it's cart only, but it's not my cart, you know? Anyhow, that was a lot. Chris, now I'd like to hear about whatever experiences you have, even minimal as they are, since apparently I'm the only one that actually owned this game when we were younger.
So the only experience I had experience with the NES Castlevania games. Played them. I remember playing them in Pizza Huts. Like they were the cool games to play in Pizza Huts, and I'm sure you know what kind of console that was.
It
Arcade
was a
cabinet.
Play Choice 10.
Yeah, there you go. But that was it. Like I just remember just the vibe from the game and playing the Nintendo versions. Never played 4, but I did play X, which I remember like was sort of like the other ones, but definitely not as cool. So I don't know, getting ahead of myself here, but yeah. So playing when I popped in 4 to play it currently, and it felt like a Castlevania game. I was so excited. So, but yeah, that was pretty much that's all I've got for is my old school memories. It's just the fact that Castlevania was like the cool, awesome, brutal, like that's so metal game from when I was a kid. So, what about you, Corey?
Well, I think we've already discussed that Sean's dealing with any real experience here. I did play this at some point as a child. I don't remember when or where. It was either like a friend's house or a possible rental or something. But I will say that Castlevania's one of those things where like everyone has a Castlevania adjacent memory. Like you can see this game and go, okay, it's Castlevania. It's like, well, have you ever played Castlevania? No. Well, how do you know it's Castlevania? Well, because you've seen Castlevania. Like it's just one of those things where it's like, if I showed this to someone and they were roughly our age, they'd say, yeah, it's Castlevania. It's like, well, have you ever played it? Probably not.
Well,
But
and have they even like? Isn't there like a subgenre of games like that are named after Castlevania style?
I don't know.
So you're talking about Metroidvania, and
Yes, that's what.
that
Yeah,
kind of an amalgamation of obviously Metroid and Castlevania, and that's a huge, huge genre now. And that really started in Castlevania with the iteration that came on the PlayStation. Oh my God, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. There we go. So that's
oh, yeah,
where this series kind of started that Metroidvania style, where portions of the castle were inaccessible until you got certain power ups and different weapons, and
gotcha.
you're able to move on.
So kind of like the first Metroid game.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Alrighty.
yeah, but as I was saying, like it's something where it's like, okay, yes, I know this game. I've seen this game. I could not place the time and date and everything, but like I picked it up, in present day, and I knew what I was doing. Like you give me 10 seconds of control. It's like, okay, this is the whip, these are the upgrades. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I remember playing Castlevania. It's like, oh, where'd you play it? no idea, none at all. But it's it's one of those childhood staples that you kind of instantly recognize. It's up there with Sonic and Mario and Metroid and Zelda. Like it's a name, we know it. But
And
yeah, I had a good time with it.
I definitely understand what you're talking about when you say that it's a kind of game that you can pick up, not really know much about it, but figure it out very quickly. Very similar with like Contra-like games.
Yes, Contra was the best, by the way.
We need to do an episode on Contra.
We
But
will. And we're gonna roll around
that game,
and shoot guns.
I am not good at that game, so that's gonna be brutal
No,
for me.
I don't know of too many people who are good at that game, but
That's why everybody knows the cheat code for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. There is a reason that code is pretty famous. Cory,
recognized.
Chris, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about when we're talking about Castlevania, whether it be this game or any other history that you have with Castlevania?
Well, listen to you guys talking about and Cory talking about like the general feel. I summed up what I was trying to say earlier when I was like, this game's so metal. So if all the Nintendo games and Super Nintendo games that were out at the time were like your typical radio-friendly bands and stuff, like if Mario was like, the B-52s or whatever.
Okay, yep.
Castlevania was Slayer.
What is this analogy?
Like,
well, apparently Mario sang Rock Lobster and
No,
Castlevania.
no, I'm just
Rain
saying,
Blood.
like my analogy, like when I was like, like this game's so metal, like yeah, like this is like the Slayer of video games. Like this was like undeniably heavier and awesome and brutal and better than everything else. Like cooler than everything else.
That's something I'm definitely going to talk about when it's my turn. When we talk about revisiting the game today, is the atmosphere that this game and the series as a whole has.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, let's wrap this up and let's listen to some great music from Super Castlevania 4.
I thought you were about to say Slayer.
Everyone get ready to listen to Slayer, and then we're going to play Guile's theme.
All right. It's not going to be Guile's theme, but here's a classic, Bloody Tears. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but it came
Doesn't that sound like a Slayer song?
It came from Simon's Quest, actually.
Okay.
So,
it goes like this, doesn't it?
That's no, Guile's theme.
Oh, damn.
So stick around and we'll be right back. And welcome back. So we have already discussed what it was like playing the game in the early 90s. Now we're going to go ahead and discuss what it's like playing the game in 2022. Chris, what are your impressions of the game? How'd you play it? And tell me everything about it. Did you beat it?
Yes. Yeah, totally beat it. Okay, so first off, I was so excited about this because, like I previously mentioned, I played X as a kid. And when you guys suggested we do Castlevania 4, I was thinking it was X because I didn't know there were multiple Castlevania Super Nintendo games.
And there's like 9.
So, no, we established there are 2. But, so yeah, I was thinking we were going to be talking about X, and I was just like if I kept my my unexcitement to myself. And so when I loaded up 4, and it was not X, I was so excited. And it felt and it played like a true Castlevania game, because also, as Sean mentioned, Castlevania X is really just a what would you call it?
It's a really
a reskin.
It's a really poor port of Rondo of Blood.
Yeah, that one did not like. That does not feel like a Castlevania game to me. Yes, you hit candlesticks and kill ghouls, but it just something about it felt off. Whereas when I loaded up 4 and started playing it, it was awesome right out of the gate. It just felt like a straight up, like an instant upgrade from the Nintendo ones, and it just felt familiar. And even though I'd never played it, it felt like a Castlevania game. I felt familiar with it already. And one thing I that also boosted my excitement about it was Elden Ring. Is when we first started playing this, I had not gotten Elden Ring yet, and you guys are going to think I'm nuts for connecting these two things. But Elden Ring has that same sort of vibe to me, where like you're
gritty
you're
and
going,
violent.
yeah, and going through creepy stuff, like creepy levels, like the dilapidated castles, and so like it just like I was in the mood for that kind of theme, and then the gameplay, it turned out like I was happy it wasn't X, and it plays so good, and it really it does play good. Anybody who hasn't played this game, go back. It plays great. And one thing that I did notice that was kind of fun. So this was the first Castlevania that came out on the Super Nintendo, and also came out fairly early in the Super Nintendo cycle. Am I right, Sean?
Yes.
And you could tell they were playing like, I'm not okay. I'm not worried about spoilers. It's been 30 years or whatever. But in the first level, there's the first area. You have to do the thing where you hop behind the other side of the gate, and it reminded me of Super Mario World, where you're crawling on the fence and you punch through and you spin around, go on the other side of it.
When
You guys
Mario's
know?
when Mario's scaling the kind of chain link fence in the fortresses.
Yeah, they basically took the same idea and put it in the first little area of this game, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then they never went back. I was like, oh, is this going to be like a recurring theme? No, it wasn't. Just one time. And then throughout the game, I've noticed there's a lot of things that just one time. There's and so it feels like they were testing the limitations of the new system, of what they could do with it, of the new little tricks and little effects that they could do using a new system compared to playing off of an old Nintendo, including jumping behind the fence. There's the rotating level. You know what I'm talking about, where like the actual level itself rotates, but then there's also the other level where it looks like it's spinning in a circle.
The background.
Yeah, the background spinning, but then there's the one level where the actual level, you're like what you're standing on, like you have to use your whip and like dangle from your whip while
when you use the chain hook and the room turns.
And the room itself turns. Yeah, there's a lot of one-off tricks that
you were taking thoughts directly out of my head.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about how it was kind of the infancy of the system, so they wanted to show off a lot of the things that they could do, and part of that was that Mode 7 that we've talked about in some previous podcasts. The rotating room where it's like a giant barrel. That's what it kind of feels like. I mean, that's all Mode 7 there, and exactly what you're talking about with the room itself that rotates, where you have to hit that whip hook, and you have the Medusa heads kind of flying at you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this whole game is look what I can do. Like it was great, and it was fun, and it's kind of cool how they have that pepper out through the whole game. It's not just it's not just one flavor and then it sticks with it the whole time. It just kind of keeps adding these little variations in that keeps the whole game fresh from level to level, and the enemies don't feel repetitive. As you progress, like it's not like an RPG where you are like gaining more hit bars or gaining like you have the same kit at the end that you started with basically, but yet you still feel like you've really advanced. and grown with the story, or I don't know, not really story, but the levels, the difficulty scales up and you get better with it, and the gameplay is really fun. And I will admit, I had a joystick for my instead of just a D-pad, so being able to hit those angle whips like way easier with a joystick.
Look at Mr. Fancy Man over
Yeah,
here.
fancy pants whip master. And yeah, no, I love this game, and the soundtrack was great. There's that one
Oh,
funky
great. I don't. Okay.
dude. Oh my gosh, there's so many songs in there.
First level I enjoy.
Dude, there's so many songs in there. I'm like, oh man, I'd love to hear like a metal version of this song with like a live metal band, like
Not that dirty rock lobster.
and yeah, and then there's that really weird jazz song which I requested you throw in during one of the interludes, but that was just so weird, but different and unexpected, and like this game just felt so fresh and played really good, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. And the boss difficulties was great. Had I played this game as a kid, I know I wouldn't have beaten it. There's no way I would have beaten this as a kid.
Do you have a favorite stage?
Man, yeah, like the one that you were talking about, the one that sticks out the most to me is that I don't know where it looks like the background's rotating. It just felt so weird and different and made it fun. That'd probably be my favorite, just because it was just the most visually appealing to me. But also, I don't know if I have any favorite boss battles or anything, but each one was great and unique. Like, and that's the other thing. Each boss fight was unique and hard, and thank God, like, you have unlimited attempts. But they were actually nice enough to, at least like for the Dracula fight, where if you die during the Dracula fight, when you respawn, it gives you everything that you need to beat Dracula again. Like, you don't lose your power ups,
Yeah, that'd be brutal otherwise.
Yeah, I think that fight would have been impossible without the Holy Cross and with a whip extension. So, and I like the fact that it's not 3 continues and then start all the way over at the beginning.
Yeah, the game was definitely a lot more balanced, in my opinion, which I think is great, but it also kind of took away some of that Classicvania challenge to the game, because the original Castlevania games were ridiculously hard.
Yeah, that's for sure. And to be honest, and the first ones, did you have a set number of lives or a set number of continues?
I haven't played it because I've been too busy.
Fair enough. I honestly, I don't remember. I remember as a kid, I never beat any Castlevania on the regular Nintendos either.
Man, I'm not sure we played the same game, honestly.
What? What, did you just breeze through this game?
Well, Chris, if you have wrapped up your segment, Cory, why don't you tell us how you feel about the game? Because you kind of have some differing opinions, we'll say.
Yeah, some differing opinions. Here's my summary of Castlevania 4 in one word. Boo-hoo!
Are you making ghost sounds?
Yes.
Like the ghosts?
The fans are not going to be happy with me. I'm going to tell you right now, this sucked. I did not have a fun time.
Wow.
I got the bejesus beaten out of me. This was an abusive relationship. Like, okay, so here's some of the issues I have. Number one, if you jump and there are stairs, there's a chance that you'll just fall through stairs to your death. Number two, all the power-ups are located in such a way that if you clip the power-up, it'll immediately fall on your head, which potentially has you losing a lot of your equipment. I had the boomerang. The boomerang's great. And then I want to slap that candle, and the candle falls and it immediately lands on my head, and now I have a stupid knife. and the stupid knife sucks. Or you'll get like the axe, or then you'll pick up like the firebomb, and you'll be like, oh, okay, cool, firebomb. And then you throw it, and then you realize that you have ammo for your equipment. And then you're like, oh god, I have X number of uses of this. And you just try to range everything down because it's really easy to range stuff down. And then you're like, I have no more ammo. So you start whipping candles, and then you switch your power-ups out, and you're like, this power-up sucks. This is the time stop, and it costs 5 hearts to use, and I don't like it.
Oh my
gosh. And then you get to the third stage, and then a bunch of frogmen jump out, and they slap you around, and then you get flung off the bridge, and you die because everything when you fall is a one-shot mechanic, and it's abusive, and it don't like it. And I had to beat this game with passwords because I was not having a good time. And like the extra screw you is like when you do die and you lose all your stuff, they're like, here's your regular whip back. You're like, this thing sucks. And they're like, yeah, but you just got to break like 3 candles to get your power-ups back. You're like, oh, okay, cool. And you break 3 power-ups to get your whip back. And then that third one is like a stupid power-up that loses your boomerang. And you're just like, this is dumb. And I hate this game.
It's and the way I related this to Dark Souls was also the difficulty level.
Yes, the difficulty level is screw you.
Like
really, I had to play the third act, like 3-3 or 3-2 or whatever it is. I had to play that over like 5 times because every time I'd be like, oh, okay, this is a piece of terrain, and it's not, and then I'd fall to my death, or like I would miss the swinging like from the chandelier whip hook mechanic. I would like let go too early, and then I would fall and I would die, and so I'd have to sit there and swing. And then like there's a real issue I have too with like hitboxes. Everything is a very small hitbox, so when you're fighting guys, like you'll whip, and then like the double-headed spitting fireball dinosaur monster heads, the dragons, like their projectile will be just high enough where your whip goes under it, and then it shoots you in the face, and then you take damage, and then you you like whack open candles to get healing, but there's not healing there. There's just a knife, and then you lose your boomerang, and then you get to Medusa, and you don't have the boomerang anymore, and then you die. And so, like, I was not having a good time, you guys. I'm sorry. Like, this was very abusive, and I mean, it's relatively well balanced. The music is meh. Like it's a good game, right? Like I can't fault this game from a technical standpoint, but my God, was I not having fun with this? Like,
how did you like the ghosts?
It sucked. Everything sucked. Like I literally got to like the 4th level. And I got to like 4-2 or whatever it was, and I died like 6 times, and I threw my controller. I'm like, I haven't done this since I was like 10 years old, and I whipped my 360 controller onto my desk, and my wife's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. It's just Castlevania. Don't worry about it. And then I got so pissed off, I like went online, I was like, where's some passwords to get to the next level?
So you're saying this game sucked you back into your childhood?
Yeah, like it was not in a good way. Like,
and Michelangelo was not the best ninja.
No, Michelangelo wasn't here to save me. This is not fun.
I think all 3 of us played very different games.
No, I will admit. No, I played the same game as this because I had to replay the levels so many times that there were plenty.
And like the other thing too is like, okay, so you're talking about like the gritty atmosphere. Well, like a lot of the times you look at terrain and you're like, I can stand on that. No, you can't. You fell through and you're dead now. It's like, well, what happened? Or you're walking along and then the bricks fall out from underneath you, but you can't jump because there's a brick above your head. So you have to like speed run through, and then you get shot by the stupid frog monster that jumps up from the water as the bricks are falling, and then he knocks you backwards and you drown and you die and you have to replay the level, and then you get mad. Oh,
those frog monsters were my most hated enemy. I just hated
everything.
Those.
Like, I mean, okay, so here's the thing: there's a lot of cool bosses. A lot of them can just be cheese through, if I'm gonna be honest, because the boomerang's amazing.
Yeah,
And
yeah. If you have the Holy Cross,
like I got to Medusa and I like threw the boomerang 3 times and then I jumped, so she froze me midair, and then she died from the boomerangs while I'm frozen safely above all of her minions. So I was like, okay, this is an easy kill. And then I got to the next level and I died like 37 times to stupid trash monsters. Like it was just not like. Just it burns me up inside. It was not fun.
Did you make it to the Dracula fight?
No, I had to cheat. Like I had to get a password. I was so tired of it.
But I mean, like, did you even try the Dracula
Oh
fight?
yeah, like I played every boss, like, but I passworded my way around, and then I just had to continuously continue. And just like, okay, time to force my way through to this because this is like homework for us, It's like I want to be ready to talk about it, but I'm just like flipping A, man.
Oh man, I loved it.
No, not at all. Like we go from Star Fox, which is kind of like a derpy little like rail shooter fun time, and then we go to like the Ninja Turtles, which is like this cartoony, beautiful wonderland, and then we get to this, and it's like, duh. And we had Sonic before this.
Yeah,
we had Sonic before this.
Yeah,
like I had Sonic and Tails got to beat up Dr. Robotnik, and then you guys give me this disaster.
You suggested it.
No, we brought up Castlevania, and this is the only one I had familiarity with. And I realize now is why I didn't play it more as a child, because it's painful.
Man, I'm so glad you suggest this one, because otherwise I would have never played this one. And
I'm glad you had a wonderful experience with this.
Thank you, man.
Masochism simulator.
So I breezed through this game. In fact, I played it earlier today. It took me a little over an hour.
No, I died 4,700 times.
Yeah, I also died 4,600 times.
I think a lot of it is probably muscle memory from playing it so much as a teenager, but I don't see what you guys see. I don't see the difficulty.
Oh, no.
I feel that it's very fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced with my 6 years of experience of playing it.
Okay, I didn't die 4,600 times, but I at least learned, like, when you see a funny looking brick, don't stand on it very long.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure, but like a lot of the thing is too, like, okay, so the walkway, when you're going through like one of the levels where the wood beams spin or whatever underneath you, some of them spin, some of them don't, and then like they also look kind of like the bricks of the background. So you're like, can I stand on that? Okay, let me try. Oh, it spun and I died and I fell.
Oh, how about the level, the parts of the levels where you had to swing across using your, Indiana Jones style, like whip.
Oh my god! And then like I was like,
and you couldn't hit them.
And I was like, how do people do this? And it's like I went and looked up like a couple speed runs, and a lot of guys, they're just like, I'm just gonna damage boost through this. And if you don't know, damage boosting, for those of you at home, is when you basically run into a guy and you get damaged and it makes you invincible for a couple of seconds because you took damage from a monster. And a lot of these speedrunners are just like, I'm just going to sprint through the level, I'm going to damage boost my way through it, and then I'm going to get to the boss and I'm going to beat the crap out of the boss because the boss is far easier than the game mechanics are.
It's not that bad.
It
is not that bad.
You know what? You can have your opinion. I'm going to have my opinion, which is right. So
if I had to guess, like, put an actual number, I did not keep. The next game we play, I'm going to make tally marks of how many times I die. I think we should all do that. That'd be great.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we played through Star Fox, like, and I died maybe once or twice, or a couple times. And we played through Ninja Turtles, and that was a relatively smooth run, thanks to Michelangelo. And we played Sonic 2, and I could play Sonic 2 with my eyes closed. And then we get to this, and like every time I got to a new level, it's like, what stupid MacGuffin is gonna kill me? Like, like the frogs jump at you, and they knock you backwards and you drown. Like, it's just, everything is.
You sound like a cartoon character.
Everything wants to kill you. It's just so abusive.
Oh.
And then so there's the purple hands that come out of the ground and grab you, and like you can't break out of them. Like I'm sitting there and I'm like swinging and I'm like mashing buttons. And they're just like, we're going to hold you here for an extended period of time and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm like, why won't you let me go, hand? I'm going to kill you. And then you get free of the hand. And then while you're trying to kill that hand, another hand comes up. And then you realize you just have to keep running. Just run and jump and get away from the hands because you can't do anything about the hands.
We played very different games.
Oh, yeah, we did. I'm telling you.
All right, I'm excited to hear Sean's take on this.
Simon's sprite is so massive. It's just, he's huge.
Yes, Simon is huge, but his whip is very narrow.
His whip has the 2 extensions on it that makes his whip so powerful compared to the previous Castlevania games that the sub-weapons are almost useless with the exception of the boomerang cross.
The cross is the only thing you need.
Amazing.
Yeah. Once you get a hold of that one, you do whatever you can to keep it because it is
but
by
then
far and away the
you
best.
want to get more ammo and then you hit a candle and then some stupid knife falls on your head.
Yeah, that happened to me a few times. Oh, we have not mentioned the fact that when you hit the attack button, if you hold it, your whip just dangles out in front of you, and you can use the D-pad to just kind of flip it around like a wet noodle, and it hits everything it touches. That's so great.
I thought about that earlier when I was writing up the outline, but I didn't write it in, and I'm kicking myself for it now because that's something that I thought was really, really cool when I was younger. But now I never use it because
I use it when the bats are coming at me. If you have when there's stages where there's a few bats just kind of swinging in at you, or projectiles like Dracula's projectiles. If you just hold your whip out and just fling it around in front of you, it's like a shield.
Say the bats. They seem so much faster than any other Castlevania before this that they are genuinely a pain in the ass.
Not as much as the frog people.
I don't have a problem with them. I know exactly how they're going to move, what they're going to do, so I just ignore them for the most part. I feel that the gameplay overall is great. It's still Castlevania. It's not as good as the original, but it's a fantastic game. It's got a dark and oppressive atmosphere to it, but I wish that they had done a lot more kind of visual enhancements. Parts of it are kind of too drab, where I feel that, yeah, it's one of the initial games that released for the Super Nintendo, but I feel like they could have done a lot more for it. Simon's walk animation, I think that he looks ridiculous. He walks very stiff.
Mm-hmm. Walks like a man. Walks like a man.
Ridiculous.
He's marching.
I tried looking up some development info on this game, but I didn't really find much outside of, who the producers were, so on and so forth. So I don't know if they were crunched for time, but they did showcase a lot of things that we discussed earlier, a lot of that Mode 7 stuff that really kind of sold me on what was next gen for the Super Nintendo, I feel that the game is really fair, like I said. In fact, I think Simon might be a little too strong because his whip is so long and you're able to whip in diagonals, which is out of control, and upwards. So
yeah, the upward whip and the fact that it goes through floors, was a little.
Okay, I mean, so here's my counter argument to that. So Simon, very high damage, very sturdy, I would say. Counter argument: people can just run into you and you get thrown off of things and then you die. I mean, so in my opinion, there's yes, you can kill things very easily, but you also can die very easily.
And there's not a whole lot of health regen in this game either.
There's not either.
That knockback is a staple of the earlier classic Vania games.
Sure, it's fine. It's a staple, and it's acceptable. But
there's so many places for you to fall.
There's so many pratfalls and death traps, and I was not paying attention, and I thought terrain was fine, and I landed on a spike because it was brown, and so was the surrounding area. And I mean, coming at this from a fresh set of eyes, because I don't have too much of experience with this. I had to essentially learn every stupid monster and then learn to look for, what to look for. And so I had to study all of these stupid things and be like, okay, this guy does this and it's very annoying. And if I get clipped by this, I know I'm hosed, especially at this spot right here.
a lot of games, especially
Well,
older games. It's
yeah, sure,
pattern recognition.
Yeah.
but it's
And
it's so unforgiving.
See, you and I crammed this game into a 2-week period to try to play, where Sean had experience. But yeah, had you had this game as a kid with no other better games to play, nothing like no World of Warcraft to distract you with, or
But I mean, like, even in other, like, so, like, Mega Man, I would say, is a pretty hard title, right? Like, can we all agree that Mega Man's pretty, like, abusive?
yeah, I would rank that kind of on the same level as
Yeah,
this.
so, like, even
I
in
really
Mega
want to
Man,
do Mega Man.
well, sure, Mega Man's great, but, like, even in Mega Man, if you get, like, hit, you can continue on. You know what I mean? Like, whereas this, it's like if you get hit and you're not paying attention, like, okay, you just fell off the side and you died, or like you got bumped into spikes, or like the ceiling fell down and crushed your head. Like, it's very mean.
I
So this
I
game bullied you.
I don't feel like you feel. I
Well,
understand that it
that's
was a hard
fine.
game, but I don't think it was that bad. I think that it was a pretty standard fare as far as the Castlevania game goes. It was pretty straightforward. You mostly go from left to right and beat up enemies.
Well, sure, that's a
Sometimes you
lot
go
of
from right
games.
to left.
Yeah, there is some really good level variance where yes, you are going, sometimes right to left, but there's also a lot of verticality in this game, and I really like that. That's something that I hadn't really experienced in previous Castlevanias up to this point. There were some
No,
areas that I thought were pretty cool. We talked about all the Mode 7 stuff, but the chandeliers swinging back and forth, I couldn't tell you why, but I thought that was a really cool segment.
yeah, it was fun. Now, one thing I was just gonna, I'm sure Corey will agree with me with on the levels, the vertical levels, like when you're climbing up a staircase and stuff, and you miss your jump, and you know there's a platform right off screen underneath you, but because it's off screen, you still die anyways. That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like instead of just the screen, like just
That's
going
fair.
down with you, yeah. And that is such a common, like that is such a recurring thing in so many of those old games like that. And even like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, even they do that in there in the newer game because it's supposed to be like a retro throwback game. But yeah, like on
That's
the
a very
vertical
fair
level,
complaint.
yeah. And I hate that in every game where it's like that, it drives me nuts.
I mean, I understand that this is, the way it is, and it's certainly beatable. If I gave this enough time and effort, like, I'm sure I could beat this. But it was frustrating to the point of being abusive. Like, it was one of those things where it's like, so you don't see a lot of repetition in the monsters. So everybody's got some different hitbox or different, like, way that they are controlled, or like the way that they come at you. So you're constantly dealing with new scenarios where stuff is flying at you and beating you up. And a lot of it is like, okay, just jump over it and slap it with your whip and then it dies. It's like, okay, but when do I jump? When do I, or like, when do I swing? And then, like, a flying bat comes down that you weren't prepared for and it smacks you in the head, and then you fall off the murder chandelier and you drop to your death, and it's, I would say it's relatively balanced, but it's punishing. It's
Hmm.
not enjoyable. It's like, okay, here's your fifth continue where we're gonna put you right back to where you were. Don't worry, we're being generous and we're putting you back on stage 3-3 or whatever, 3-1. But it's like, I don't want to do 3-1 again, because 3-1 took me 25 minutes to get through because I kept dying to stupid crap.
I can see where you're coming from. There is a lot of enemy variants, and with that does mean that you have to learn a lot of patterns for each and every monster. And maybe it's because I do have the experience that I have with this game that going back to it was a lot of fun. It's kind of like that moment we were talking about Dark Souls and currently Elden Ring. It's kind of like that moment when those games click for you, that it goes from this punishingly difficult game to a very fun game that
Oh yeah,
you
you
now
feel like
have to
really
learn.
badass, right?
Absolutely.
That's every time when I was playing this this game, I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm playing Dark Souls on my lunch break. Like, that's what it felt like to me. Like, it was great.
And I mean, I guess a couple of the other issues that I have is like they kind of trick you too. So when you're going through like the water level or whatever, and the brown bricks without the diamond on them, they'll crumble underneath your feet. And then you're like, okay, I got to watch out for bricks that look like that. And then you get to these other bricks that are like gray and they don't have a diamond on them. So you're like, okay, these ones are probably going to crumble. They don't crumble. So you're just like, you guys aren't following the rules that you made for me. And
Oh
so it's
man,
just like all sorts of like little things like that where it's just like, okay, I'm going to be prepared for this. It's like, it didn't happen. Why did
okay.
it not happen? You know?
So there's one level on there, and I should have made note of this, but you guys are going to know exactly which level I'm talking about. But it combines two of the things that I hated the most about this game was you came up some stairs and you're on a fresh part of the level, and it's not like the beginning of the level, but you're going from right to left, and there is some platforms above you, and you have to go underneath them, and there's gaps in the platforms, and you have to chain whip across, and the hook hold is right underneath the platform, so you have to hit it in the air on diagonal perfectly, otherwise you fall down that hole. And you do that like 2 times, and then when you get to the edge of that, the bricks that you have to jump onto to get to the level up above where the stairs are to keep advancing, they're all the breakaway bricks where you have to jump onto them and then jump onto the next one. And if they break away before you get over, you'll land on the platform.
And if you're not prepared for it, you're hosed,
Yeah.
Like just...
Yeah. But there's a point where if you miss that first jump and you land back on the platform, your only way up is gone. And you're like, well, time to jump off, time to walk off this cliff and start over again.
Yeah, it's like, okay, time to die.
And I can't remember. That was my least favorite level. I don't know which one it was, but that one, the jumping and whip mechanics in that level killed me more than any boss or any monster in the game. And that's always frustrating is when the level design is harder than the enemies in the game.
Well, okay, and my opinion on this is the bosses were all very fun and creative. Like they had a lot of variety on that. They have a lot of variety on monsters, and the levels are actually really very cool. Like everything feels very different. Everything has a really nice aesthetic to it. Everything looks nice. Musically, I was not impressed. I'll say that right now. But everything from a visual standpoint and from like a variable and all that sort of thing, great game. But just the abusive like first timer difficulty curve of this to me was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I had to walk away. I had to set the controller down or toss it down, and I had to like stop playing. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch someone play through this to see how it's done. And like a lot of the people that do it just kind of cheese their way through the level, and then they have certain ways to beat the bosses. And to me, that's like the boss is harder than the level, which is like kind of reverse. It's like, okay, so if you screw up this part of the level, you're dead. It's like, okay, but what about the boss? Like, well, he hits you and then you're frozen for a second and then you keep fighting. It's like, but that's backwards.
Well, what bosses did you like?
The Medusa was really cool. The skeleton man, like in the suit of armor that was like in a glass case or whatever. Like that was
that's
cool.
a good one.
God, what were the other ones? Like the first one was the skeleton that's kind of just jumping up and down with the sword, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was really easy.
Well, he's your intro boss.
Yeah.
There's the skeleton.
The Grim Reaper was a pain in the ass.
It had the head of like a pterodactyl.
On
a skeleton bottle.
Has a spear.
Yes, and has the spear and has the 2 different phases to it. That boss was brutal. Like that was like a classic Dark Souls moment where the boss just kept wrecking you. And that one, and then when I actually figured out, I'm like, oh, if I just crouch the whole time and slap him as soon as he comes down, and then just move 2 feet and then slap him again. Like once it finally clicked, I nailed it, and I felt good to actually beat it. That was my most hated and also my proudest boss that I was able to beat, was just because that boss was brutal.
So Death is my favorite boss fight, partially because he's so far into the game that I've beaten most of those bosses multiple times, the previous ones.
Right.
So getting to him is almost new and exciting because I haven't done it very often. And I really have to agree with you on the music. It is not very good. There are a couple tracks, Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears, which are both going to be in here once I edit this later. Those are fantastic. But overall, it kind of sucks.
Man, you guys just don't know what slams.
Which one is the first one? Is that the Dracula's Castle?
Well, I don't know necessarily when you say the
level.
first one. So there's stage 1 theme of Simon Belmont, which has kind of become his reoccurring theme for Simon. He's in Super Smash Brothers, and you hear that song. Cory?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. Yeah, it's like the first level where you're like you're doing like the whole Mario chain thing that Break was talking about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the Simon Belmont theme.
Okay, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, that one rocks.
There's 2 or 3, well, there's at least 3 really good ones, but I'm not sold on the rest. That segment was great. I think that we got a lot of really good discussion. Chris, Cory, is there anything else you want to comment on before we move to our final thoughts in our final segment?
No.
Mm-mm.
No? All right, well, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we will discuss our final thoughts on the game, and I haven't really discussed this with you guys, but I wanted to do that retro video game recommendation again. Even if you guys don't have anything, there's a game or two that I'd like to talk about.
Sure.
Go for it.
All right, stick around. Okay, so now we're going to discuss our final thoughts on the game, how we feel about it. That might not be too obvious for everybody, but for Cory, I think we know how you feel. But
Or do you?
Or do I? Cory, what are your thoughts on the game? Is it something you will consider in the future? Would you recommend it to anybody? What do you think?
I hate it. No. Here's the thing. I found it personally to be a aggressive affront to mankind. That being said, if you are looking for a game that requires a lot of thought and challenge, Super Castlevania 4 is a perfectly acceptable title. It's well done. It's nothing to listen to because the music is bad, except for Simon's theme and a couple others. But it's a fine game. It's just something that requires a lot of patience and timing, neither of which I have personally, and it does not hold your hand. It's very punishing. So if you're looking for something to sink some time into and to get a good feeling of I did it, go for it.
Chris?
Yeah, to build on that, on those positive notes, yeah, it is a challenging and I felt rewarded for beating it sort of game. I wish I would have had this game as a kid. I wish this would have been. I was the kind of kid that only got 1 or 2 games a year, and I'm still that way as an adult. So even as a kid, when I got one game, I would just play it over and over. Mostly out of lack of options, but also as a completionist, like I would just kind of just get tunnel vision on whatever game I had, and I would have loved to have had this game as a kid and just really dove into it. And this game, I think it rocks. If you haven't played it, I mean, if you like that kind of theme and stuff like that, you're gonna like it. Like as far as playability and how it holds up, I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. Because I mean, graphically, it is. I think they try to get a little bit more detailed than they. It's not cartoony.
It's a matte painting. Everything's a gritty matte painting.
Yeah, it's not like Mario World where everything in here. Compare everything to Mario, but it's not like where everything is clean and just nice bright colors. Like they tried to make it look how cool these graphics are, but in hindsight, when you do that kind of stuff on those games on those systems back then, they all kind of look like a little bit of a pixely mush, if that makes sense. I don't know, but anyways, yeah, no, I'd rank it like 7 out of 10. And this is probably, now that I've played it, I will probably keep replaying this because I really enjoyed it.
A 7's fair.
I think it's a great game. It's not my favorite Castlevania by far. I prefer the originals to this game any day, but it's definitely a good game. In my opinion, it's maybe a little too easy, but again, I have some experience playing the game, so there is some bias going on.
And I would agree with that. Like, now that I know all the tricks and stuff, like, yeah, I'm sure like a second playthrough would be way easier.
Yeah, but that's the same with any game.
Yeah.
You grow and learn with it. Would I recommend this game? Maybe. If it's something that is in a collection that you have, like that Castlevania Anniversary Collection, you have all three of the classic Vanias, you have the Game Boy games, you have the Super Castlevania 4, this game that we're talking about. Yeah, absolutely give it a play, but it's not something I would rush out and pick up to play on a classic console today.
Now, if you had that collection of Castlevania games, would this be the first one out of that collection you would recommend to people?
No.
Which one would that be?
The original game, Castlevania.
Where it all started, right?
Absolutely. Technically.
And you said this is kind of like a reimagining of that?
Yes.
See now, and it's been so long since I played that one. This makes me want to go back and play that one and look for similarities now.
There are a lot of similarities to the game. A lot of the bosses are similar, but overall, the game is just a classic. It's not something that is necessarily going to be for everybody, as we heard today, but it's still a really good game. So, final thoughts out of the way. We had a small retro video game recommendation last time, and it's something I'd like to continue. Guys, I will go ahead and give my game first. If you don't have one, no big deal. That's not really the point. But I've been playing a lot of Mega Man 2, and I've been playing it on the 3DS in the Mega Man Legacy Collection. That game, currently, as of today, is only $5 on the eShop. It's on sale right now. So that's less than $1 per classic Mega Man game.
Wow, that's a deal right there.
That's a phenomenal deal. I've been really, really busy lately with school and some other things that have been going on in my life. And I've played this game a ton of times before, so it's really easy to pick up my 3DS, beat a Robot Master, and close it back up and go about doing what I was doing. So, absolutely, if you are a Mega Man fan, pick up the the Mega Man Legacy Collection if you haven't already. Either of you got any recommendations?
Yes, but Break, do you?
No, I've just been playing Elden Ring.
Okay, well, in terms of new games, you could play Elden Ring then. Let's see here. Have I talked about Airbuster before on the show?
I don't think so.
Everyone should go play Airbuster.
Is that for Super Nintendo?
It's a Genesis title.
Okay.
It's like Gradius, like, so if anyone's ever played like Gradius or Gradius 2, like where it's a side-scrolling like space game where you pick up power-ups from guys that you blow up and you get cool weapons and everything.
I shoot 'em up.
Yeah, it's a very cool game. It's got a lot of variety in terms of like power-ups, and it's very colorful. It's very like 90s anime Japan with like the characters and color, and the music is great. So go play Airbuster, and I promise that you won't regret it. And if you don't play Airbuster, you should play McDonald's Treasure Island Adventures.
I've never played that. I've heard that the McDonald's games are actually pretty decent overall, even though they're licensed games.
McDonald's Treasure Island Adventure is an amazing title, and I will recommend it every time I have the opportunity.
I got a question. Is Airbuster a vertical or a horizontal shooter?
Horizontal.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of the vertical one, so I'll give this a shot. Give it a shot and check it out.
Airbuster's got some dope music too, man.
Okay, So I haven't started playing this one yet, but if we're recommending old games, I've had the itch to play Chippendale Rescue Rangers lately.
Chippendale Rescue
Oh.
Rangers.
Rangers.
Yep. So that's what I'm going to be playing next time I get my old console out.
So
right,
on
cool.
the PlayStation 4, they had and it's probably other platforms as well, the Disney Afternoon Collection, and it was, and I could be wrong, but this is what I think was on it: DuckTales,
Classic.
Darkwing Duck,
Classic.
Oh man.
Chippendale Rescue
Classic.
Rangers, and I want to say Tailspin. I'll have to look this up to be sure which games were there, but it was a really great deal for what it was.
Man, that DuckTales game.
So the original DuckTales game that was on the NES was remade and got an HD upgrade for PlayStation 4, and it is great.
Really?
Yeah, it's unfortunately kind of locked to last gen systems, but I really liked it. I played the hell out of it. Okay, so the games are DuckTales, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, and Tailspin. So, with that being said, our next game, we're going to be working on 2 games. Cory, you mentioned that in a previous game while we were playing Sonic 2, that you and your family played a lot of Shinobi 3. Specifically, you and your brother did. So,
Yes.
at some point, you'd like to bring your brother on as a guest to discuss Shinobi 3 for the Sega Genesis.
Yes.
We don't know how long it's going to take to get that coordinated with Cory and his brother. So the in-between time, we're going to do Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo because it's a straightforward game. It's very simple. Just about everybody has played some iteration of Mario Kart at some time. So that's a game that we can crank out so there's not such a gap in between episodes. So, Chris, Cory, I want to thank you very much for your time. Meg, I want to thank you again for the logo. Shanice, I want to thank you for the title of the show. Superannuated Starman is phenomenal. And last, you, the listener, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to 3 guys loudly talk about Castlevania. Thank you so much, and I hope that you join us again in our next episode. So that's it. Thank you guys so much.